What up, Frontline? Welcome back to what we do. These forums that we are trying to have on a very frequent basis to make sure that we are giving out information that we know our community can use. I am Q Phillips, one of the co-founders of Community Frontline, and I am so very honored that you decided to spend any kind of time watching us, engaging with us about things that we really do feel concern who we are, what we do, and how we can become a better people in our community. So tonight, we got a fantastic conversation that's going to be going. It's all about Juneteenth, right? Juneteenth is the jumping off point for what this conversation is going to be, seeing how we just got through celebrating it. You know, we've been celebrating it here in Funky Town, Texas for quite a grip, right? But the nation is now on to what it is, and what it means to be able to celebrate Juneteenth. So myself and my player partner, my brother Albert Roberts, the people's attorney, is going to be helping co-pilot this ship tonight. Albert, say what up to your peoples, man.
Hey, how y'all doing out there, Community Frontline? Glad to be with y'all Wednesday night. Y'all know how we do it. We listen, we learn, and we grow together. So, you know, as we have grown and celebrated this past weekend, we continue to learn, educate, and just re-engage. So look forward to the conversation that we have tonight. I know we got plenty of work to do. So let's do this.
As we proceed to give them what you need, we got some fantastic folks on the call with us tonight. We've been trying to get this thing together. Folks been jumping in and we've been doing it. And so we actually got a couple other folks that may be joining us along the way. But that's the beauty of the Frontline, is that we just get down to it. And we have a good time with it. And I know tonight's going to be no exception to that. So we have some very illustrious, beautiful guests to be able to introduce you to. Tonight is going to be a part of our conversations. First of all, we have Mr. Elijah Strong, and Mr. Elijah Strong, all I've heard is great accolades about this young brother, everything that he's doing in the community, everything he's doing in the political scene. He got this beautiful purple and gold HBCU bound shirt on. I thought it was for my alma mater, Prairie View, but he checked me and made sure I knew it was for Wiley. Elijah Strong, what up, man? Say what up to your people.
Hey, how y'all doing? It's definitely a privilege to be at the forefront of what I'm about, and that's community relation, and just doing our part to make sure that we're moving forward as a people.
Indeed, man. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. And then we also have this ice cold brother from the Untitled Chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated on the campus of Texas Christian University. This brother holds heavy rank within our fraternity as the assistant area director now. Is that correct? Did I get that title right?
District director, brother.
Assistant district director of our illustrious fraternity right here in Texas. It's none other than the man in Frogland, my brother Rasan Hatcher. What up, man? Say what up to your people.
Greetings, everybody. It's truly a pleasure to be here. I live Black, think Black. Everything I do is about my people. So I'm very honored to be here to discuss things that matter to us.
Indeed. And we are honored to have you, man. Thank you so much for getting on with us. And tonight we have been blessed with the presence, right? We, when we embark upon everything we're talking about with Juneteenth, the name that has absolutely become synonymous with that is Ms. Opal Lee. Well, she has a strong family lineage, and the apples do not fall far from that tree at all. So tonight, we are very blessed to be able to have her granddaughter, Dion Sims, in the building with us. Dion, say what's
yes,
up to
sir.
your people.
Good evening, everyone. Glad to be here. I'll try and be as good a substitute for my grandmother as I can be.
Absolutely. Well, you don't have to worry about substituting at all, because your knowledge, your expertise, your intellect is what we needed tonight. So it was a divine appointment. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Yes, sir.
Usually my brother Dante is behind the boards, but tonight we got my brother Frank doing the thing. Y'all won't see him, but just know that Frank is putting in work for Frontline. So shout out to our brother and co-founder as well for what he's doing right now. So tonight, y'all, like I said, we're going to start the conversation with Juneteenth, and I know that it'll probably grow many legs as we're talking about who we are as a people, what our community looks like, where are we going from here, and all these different things. But again, Juneteenth is that jumping off point that got us to this. So I would love to be able to start with you, Dion, if you could just kind of enlighten about it. You know, we would hope by now most people know what Juneteenth is, why we're celebrating it and everything. But I would love for you to kind of just explain a little bit of that, and then take us a little bit on the journey that your family has been through recently, because we owe so much credit to y'all making it now a national holiday.
Well, and I want to make sure that we don't try and, overserp it. Okay. But it isn't just our family. Miss Opal, didn't carry this, for 20 years on her own back. So the concept of Juneteenth is that it is a concept. And a lot of people, there was a actual enslavement revolution here in Texas on the 19th of June. Folks did get set free. And I think the problem with a lot of the nation is that they didn't see Juneteenth, June 19th, as a day for the country. And so we had to help elevate Juneteenth out of Texas to being Juneteenth as a concept for freedom. And so that's what Grandier did. Grandier, and I call her Grandier, so you guys forgive me instead of Miss Opal, but
sure.
When she started out as 40 years ago, 45 years ago, her goal was just to make sure that Fort Worth celebrated Juneteenth. She celebrated when she was, a kid in Marshall, came here to Fort Worth. Fort Worth didn't do it so much. And when she got old enough and retired, and in the 70s, they wanted to bring Juneteenth back. Her thing was to make sure that Fort Worth, Texas celebrated Juneteenth, because that's what she knew. She met Dr. Ronald Myers somewhere like, 1998 or so, and he was pushing the concept of Juneteenth being a national holiday for the country, not just Texas, because he wasn't from here, but he, found out about Juneteenth living in the Delta, where he had gone to be a doctor, a medical doctor. And he's like, well, the concept of Juneteenth is more than just Texas slaves being freed or the enforcement of freedom coming to them, but we don't have a day that we celebrate the slaves being free, period, no matter when it came. And so it was his goal and his vision to lift it out of Texas, lift the story out of Texas, and make it a national day of celebration of the freedom of the enslaved. And so when she saw that, she immediately gravitated to it, because her goal is making sure that people, are able to live their best life, period. And so her human dignity story, trying to find people, places to stay, food to eat, housing, jobs, that's always who she's been. So when she heard about making Juneteenth national, it was like, bam, why not? So, but we had a lot of people, saying, why are we celebrating, them being told late? Why are we celebrating, being worked another extra 2.5 years? And they missed the whole point of the fact that we weren't celebrating being free at all. So when you look at it in that context, her goal for the last 5 years in making Juneteenth, a national holiday and bringing awareness is all about getting it from a single day in Texas history to being a concept for the nation, and getting people to understand, hey, we need to celebrate our freedom, not the fact that it was late, not the fact that somebody kept us going longer than everybody else, because the one thing is true, the Emancipation Proclamation did not free all the slaves. And it gets me when you hear people recount the Juneteenth story, is that the Emancipation Proclamation freed the slaves in the rebellious states. Okay, so the states that were still had slaves up on the north or right on the border, they still had slaves. Slaves didn't get free until the 13th Amendment was ratified in December of 1865, right? And still, there were still slaves in Oklahoma in the Indian territories, because the Indians did not have to obey US law. We had to do treaties with them to let go of their slaves in Oklahoma. So you've got, kind of 4 distinct times when freedom came, and all we want to do is make sure we celebrate it at least once, a day out of 365. Just give us one day. But you had to get a lot of people on board to accept the fact that it's not just about Texas. And that's the campaign she was on for the last 5 years, is to raise the awareness that it's not just about Texas. It's give us a day to celebrate being free. Now, a lot of people were, trying to say, well, Juneteenth, that's just a holiday, another day to have a festival, another day to, shin and grin and all of that. But to her, you had to acknowledge the sin so that you can acknowledge the freedom. Now that you acknowledge it, now you can talk about reparations. People were talking about reparations and getting upset because we weren't getting reparations, but they couldn't even acknowledge that you needed reparations from what? And that's what Juneteenth gives them. Juneteenth gives them the catalyst, the launching pad from this happened, you're free, and now we owe you. Got it. You couldn't have reparations before you had Juneteenth. So if you look at Juneteenth as a concept, instead of a date and time in history for a state, now you can find yourself in it and have a reason to celebrate. And that's what her whole goal was for the last 5 years.
Absolutely. And so we're looking at 1865, and we're now in 2021. And we're talking about this journey to be able to make it a national holiday for all of the reasons in which you so eloquently said. What were some of those tactics along the way? What were the things that you all were utilizing, that your grandmother believed that she was utilizing in order to bring that awareness? And what obstacles were y'all facing in order to be able to get this actually passed?
Well, again, in 2012, Dr. Ronald Myers had, by that time had, 30 or so states that had Juneteenth as a day of observance. And again, that's not a paid holiday in a state, but at least they were recognizing it in their state legislatures that, hey, we can accept Juneteenth as a day of freedom for our state too. Okay. It's not just a Texas thing. So he had about 30 some odd, about 2012, Senator K. Bailey Hutchinson out of Texas, Republican, authored a bill, SR, I don't forgot the number, but she authored a bill in 2012 that was the foundation. It didn't pass. She couldn't get her colleagues to bipartisan support it, but she laid the foundation for an Emancipation Juneteenth holiday. And our first thing was, when Doc started, he wanted to try and get a paid holiday. He kept getting shut down on that. Okay, they changed, the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation changed tactics. Okay, let's just make it a day of observance. That means you're going to change US Code 36, where they list about 145 other days that we observe. I mean, you got Columbus Day, you got Flag Day, President's Day. In US Code 36, there's 144 holidays, Mother's Day, all of these are national observances. And they said, just put us there. If you can put us there, then we will have to be on a calendar. If we're on the calendar, then teachers have to teach it. If teachers have to teach it, then we can have curriculum, we can have, greeting cards, whatever you want to do, because it's on the calendar. So they were for years, over 10, 15 years, just get us on the calendar from 2012. And when George Floyd was murdered, they said, forget the calendar, we want the holiday. We didn't. The National Juneteenth Observance Foundation didn't do that. The Senate did. Markey, you had Booker, Kamala at the time, who was a senator, John Cornyn. They said, forget just being on the calendar as an observance. We're changing it, and we want it to be a federal holiday. So when 2020 happened, they were like, we wanted to, it should be a national holiday. Let's go for it. Go for broke. And they got stopped because the Senate had one person, Ron Johnson, who said, I disagree. And so that's when it stopped, dead in its tracks. But they took it from, you guys just want to be, an observance. We think it needs to be a holiday, and we're going to push it. So we're like, okay, go right ahead. If you can get the people to agree with the money, we're not going to stop you. We want it to be a national holiday. But, we were just trying to find the road of least resistance with just being a day of observance. Okay. So now, if you go back 5 years to 2016, Miss Opal is 89 years old. Obama's in his last 6 months in office. And she's like, why didn't he make it a holiday? 8 years. Why didn't he make it a holiday? So she wanted to ask him personally. And she wrote him a letter. telling them, hey, I'm coming to, talk to you personally about, Juneteenth being a national holiday, and I'm gonna walk it, 1,400 miles, but you can cut it short if you just go ahead and have with me, and, I won't walk the whole 1,400, right? And she gotten great traction, and somebody had promised her an RV. And so I had lined up a person to be a nurse to travel with her, or somebody to drive, so that she could make this trek. And, went on Google Maps and, actually put it on the little walk. I said, Grandier, for you to walk this, Obama would be out of the office 2 years for you to do this 1,440 miles. But she was, bent on doing it. So we started 2.5 miles on September 1st, 2016, got us from Baker's Chapel to Lancaster and Beach. I don't know if any of you guys remember that. Lancaster and Beach. The 2nd of September, she got up and she started at Lancaster and Beach, and I think we got down to John Carter's, right? And she just kept down Lancaster on into Arlington. That turns into Division. Then it turns into 180 and Davis, and we're crossing over 360. We're doing this, and she's not stopping. All right, we're having to drive her to those points because somebody had, the people that were going to give her the RV reneged and said what she was doing was too political. Because remember, at that time, Donald Trump was, messing up the political scene and sucking all the oxygen out of the air. So I thought she would stop. All right, I really did. Okay, but she wanted to keep going. So we said, well, let's shift it. Let's make it a symbolic walk. And let's just go where you're invited. Let's, go reach out to the Juneteenth Observance Foundation family. And they just invited her. We were in, of course, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, Selma, Atlanta, North and South Carolina, Denver, Colorado, and Wisconsin. And we went to Chicago. And she just traveled. I wasn't able to go with her, so we're putting her on buses. My aunt's flying her on planes. People are picking her up. And this is 89 years old. No fear whatsoever. She's just traveling out there doing her thing. And in 2017, January, they set the date on the 10th to walk from Frederick Douglass House to the Capitol. Obama was saying goodbye in Chicago. They had invited him to be there. And, it's not, I guess we could have chose a different date, but that, neither here nor there. But Mark Vesey hosted a press conference for her that day. And I thought we were through. Okay, thought we were through. You did it, good for you. We go 3 years into Trump's thing, and it's time for the next election cycle. And Bernie Sanders wakes her up. Why? Why did Bernie do that? Okay, Bernie Sanders, comes on Facebook, and, his people reach out to us and they want to congratulate, 93-year-old Miss Opal for Juneteenth, right? Good marketing strategy, good sound political, get the black vote strategy, but he woke her up. And from that point, we had to then follow the Democratic candidates all across the debate cycle. So wherever they were debating, Miss Opal was there. And so she did a walk. The first one was in Detroit right after the NAACP convention. We did a walk there for them. And then we went to, I think we missed the one in August. No, it was in September. No, she was there. She was the one in Houston at TSU. She was there. And at that one, she actually got her packet. She was physically there into the hands of Kamala, Elizabeth Warren, Yang, Joe Biden. She put her Juneteenth stuff in their hands. And I remember the people interviewing her in ABC. She says, I got to get to everybody. I don't know who's going to be president. I got to get to everybody. So if anybody was trying to court her to be a surrogate, she threw that out the window because I don't know who was going to be president. So I'm just like, well, there you go. All right. So she wasn't for anybody in particular. So, and so she, again, in Vegas, wherever they were going to be speaking, that little lady found herself there. And so now and that's why when you saw Biden talk about her Thursday, he knew her because she took his hand and would not let it go. So that is because she was tenacious. She was tenacious. And so that's how come that relationship seemed like it was so genuine on Thursday when I got the call. All right, Dion, this is the White House. Okay. We want Miss Opal at the bill signing for Juneteenth tomorrow. Okay. Sure thing. And, so again, people were like, why is this about Miss Opal? Because she understands marketing. Yes, there was a whole group for working on it. She said it's taking too long. Yeah. If someone sees a little old lady walking in tennis shoes, surely they'll take notice. And that's what, if you listen to any of the interviews, that's what she says. That's called marketing. All right. Pure and simple. And she was 90 years old with a marketing plan. Wow.
No, that's simple. That's simply beautiful. And we owe so much to her and her marketing and everything else she did. Because she brought about change and used the proper word even within it with tenacity. It just shows what that tenacity really can. If we have the tenacity, how we really can change the world in so many ways.
One person can. Right? And that's why I get upset with young people when we talk about voting. They think, well, my vote doesn't count. They're gonna do what they want to do anyway. And that's so untrue, because your one vote, your one mouthpiece telling somebody else about, that's how she got 1.5 million signatures. All right, somebody else telling somebody else, it's influence. Your sphere of influence is very important. Don't shut yourself down, because there's already too many people going to try and shut you down anyway. Don't shut yourself down. So again, one person could change the world. And then I also think it's a neat generational thing, because a lot of our seniors discount themselves because I'm too old. Yeah. You've got too much wisdom of years of trial and error that young people could use if you don't shut yourself down. And so I think that this is hopefully a revival for the senior citizen sect, to say, I still got some good stuff in me. Don't just sit there and just be a babysitter.
Indeed, 100%.
And even if you are, teach those kids. Don't let them sit in front of the TV. Bring them around and talk to them. Tell them what you grew up with, and put some stuff in them instead of just putting them in front of the TV. I'm just saying.
And so no, that's awesome, Ms. Dion. So let me ask this, because obviously Miss Opal, Grandier, as you call her, she's the face. She's the face of Juneteenth, or she's at least become the face of Juneteenth.
Right.
But I know that y'all's organization, Unity Unlimited, has done a lot of hard work in the background and just continuing to amplify, get this message out, make sure that it's being communicated the right way, tied together, and continue to celebrate even before it was a national holiday. This is something that you guys have been investing a lot of time, a lot of energy. I know you specifically have spent countless hours, and whether it was this year, last year, years before.
But you know that because I worked your wife to silliness. I know.
So out of love, it's all love.
Right,
but I want you to, tell Community Frontline that's out there listening, because I think what you said a while ago was perfect. She was the face. You got a 94-year-old, 93-year-old lady walking and shooting, the marketing genius. Yeah. But it's showing other senior citizens or our elders that their voice does matter, and they can influence and amplify change. But the same thing, just like on this call tonight, we got our brother Elijah and Rasan. We got some people say, well, I'm too old, my voice isn't heard. I'm too young, nobody's going to listen to me. And I don't think Elijah and Rasan fall into that category. But talk to us just a little bit about Unity, Unlimited, and if I phrased it wrong, I'm sorry. But I know you guys are working hard, and yes, my wife worked with y'all and just did everything that she could get, but and she's still trying to do everything she wants. She wants this, and like just as bad as I think anybody else does. So if you don't mind, plug your nonprofit, because again, your nonprofit is the boots behind the scene that's kind of keeping the glue together.
Well, and thank you, Albert, for allowing me to do that. So Unity Unlimited was started back in 1994 as out of an outgrowth of seeing racial stereotypes and racial prejudice surging its head. And I mean, way back then, I could see it happening. And I'm like, in order to combat it, you got to get to the young people. So I started a week-long event called Teen Choir Explosion that at its heart was to bring kids together, different denominations, races, together to work, because I could feel the kids saying, well, I don't like that kind of music. That's white folks music, and that's, and listen up, the boom, boom, boom of Mexican music, and so they would always kind of be disparaging it, right? And I'm like, well, you need exposure past your circle so that you can be a well-rounded individual that's able to work in diverse cultures and not just segment yourself, all right, just because you don't know. So my whole thing is exposure, all right, making sure our kids were exposed to different things so that they could help able to fit in any situation they could be thrown into. So we did choir, dance, mime, we had step, we had different clinicians. They worked a whole week. And they did a concert. So we had white clinicians, Black clinicians, Hispanic clinicians. Kids were singing Mexican, Latin songs and learning Spanish, and they were just like, and then enjoying the Latin beat, and you could see the Caribbean. It was just cool. So they did that for a whole week, and then we did a concert. And so I did that for 10 years, and Unity Unlimited was fostered in that. I had to take a break, raise family, kids, and all of that. And when I saw my grandmother in 2014 finish a 2.75 parade route for Juneteenth in 2014 down into Cobb Park, they started all the way at Evans Plaza and ended it in Cobb Park. Mark Vesey and Roy Brooks were crying, wanting Ms. Opal to get in the car because they wanted to not let a 89-year-old, outwalk them in this, but they walked in Stacey Adams. Who does a parade in Stacey Adams? But anyway, but I saw her leave the parade and run and get on the stage to open up the Juneteenth Festival in Cobb Park. And I said, I am a bad granddaughter. Oh my God. I was there, but I was there to support, how we do. It was hot, you didn't want to be out there, but I was there to support my grandmother. And I'm like, I did not help her, do and put this thing together. She's working too hard. I said, she needs to work smart. She needs to get on social media. She needs to get, all these things, having a website, I said, well, okay, let me come in and bring her to the new millennium, right? And help her in that regard. And I asked her, I said, you're about unity. That's what Juneteenth is to you. I said, why don't we pull this under Unity Unlimited? And let's, do it together, because your mission and my mission are the same thing. And she said, granddaughter, thank you. And so with that, we were able to celebrate the 150th Juneteenth anniversary of Juneteenth that year in 2015. That year, we petitioned the state to commission a Juneteenth specialty license plate, and did all of the groundwork to make sure that we had, and Nicole Collier and Senator Royce West put it before the Texas legislature. And that's why today there's a Juneteenth specialty license plate. If you guys don't have one, you need to get one. But aside from that, we built the web page, we built the social strategy, and we had people join the team that had all those skills. And so Unity Unlimited, produces Fort Worth Juneteenth now. Unity Unlimited also is the arm for Opal's Farm. Miss Opal, was chairman emeritus of the Community Food Bank. She rescued it from an arson fire, still taking food to people out of the back of a trunk, making sure folks had food. When the people, Holy Guacamole, had this $1.3 million facility in her backyard, and she had been asking them to, keep the perishable foods for her while she went around the neighborhood giving away food to people. And when they wanted to sell the building, they said, well, she wanted to buy it. She ain't got 1.5 million. They said, well, we'll lease it to you. She paid $4,000 a month, raised it all the time, except for the last month. And they said, you've done such a good work, Ms. Lee, we're going to give this building to you. So they gave her a 33,000 square feet facility to run the community food bank out of. And she did that for years, okay? And so while, one time while she's, watching these people, they now serve 500 folks a day. She asked them, if anybody's standing in line, why are you in line? Why do you need food? And a lot of them, can't work, don't have a lot of, and a lot of them were previously incarcerated, so wouldn't nobody hire them and that kind of thing. And she said, if I had a farm, would you come work the farm? And he said, yeah. I mean, because why not? I did it in the system. How come why not transfer it? So we got, she kept petitioning, you know how she is. And Tarrant Regional Water District gave us the use of 13 acres of land right along the Trinity River. Most farms fail because of irrigation. I got a whole river. All right. So we got, we put in the irrigation systems to pump the water out the Trinity and flourishing. And so now we're working on the certification program whereby, how people get life credit, for going to school, you get your degree because you work so much, and those things transfer into life credit, for credit hours in school. Our program that we're wanting to design says you've been in the system. And so I've reached out to the correctional system and said, tell me what the job descriptions were in the correctional facility for your farming and agriculture. They have lots of them, but for your farming and agriculture ones, what were those job descriptions? What were people doing so that those jobs can then be transferred and translated into life experience for credit hours in somebody's certification program. Paul Quinn has an agricultural, TCU has an agricultural certification. TCC has an agricultural certification. How can we get people degrees? They still have to take classes and all that stuff, but their life experience, having been in the system, farming for Texas, can now be translated into some credit hours that they can get to use for a job and for a degree. So we're working now trying to build that certification program so that, and we're not asking them to come down and volunteer. We are asking for volunteers, believe me, but we want folks to get a living wage. So we're working with Texas Workforce Commission because they've got programs where they'll pay people, right, to work on jobs and different things. So we're trying to find ways for people to be paid a living wage, get a certification, because that builds self-esteem, that builds human dignity. And now what may have, been a bad thing in my life, now I've got something positive out of it and I've got a job. So Opal's Farm is about not just putting seeds in the ground, but putting seeds in people that bring a harvest. So we're fighting food insecurity, food deserts, but it's about the people too. And, then we've, got, like I said, Teen Choir Explosion, Your Voice Unleashed, Opal's Farm. We do a program, in Christmas time, Secret Santa. So we do a lot, but it's all about the people. And that's where her heart is. And that's where my heart is.
That is fantastic. And we can't thank you enough for the work you're doing, the work she's doing. That is it's so awesome to hear. We want to take this opportunity to bring these young lions in the game.
Okay, because I've been talking a lot, so I'm sorry.
No, because that's exactly what we wanted. We wanted you to be able to kick that game out there. We need people to know exactly what the work you all are doing, the legacy of Miss Opal, what she's doing. So thank you. You've done a great job of explaining those things. Well, we got these wonderful young kings on the line with us as well. And, so I'll start with you, Rasan, and I'll just ask one, if there's anything that you heard from Dion that you would like to comment on, please feel free to do so. But I guess what I'm also want you to be able to comment on is, what does all of this mean to you? Juneteenth, the celebration of what we're celebrating with Juneteenth and everything, how does that resonate with you, and what does that mean with you as well?
Right. Thank you, brother. First, I'd like to comment on Miss Dion. The work that y'all are doing, of course, is amazing. And I would love for us to be able to continue this conversation offline about the carceral system in the U.S. and everything relating to that. I actually had the pleasure of visiting Angola prison in Louisiana about 2 years ago. And I thought it was very ironic how they give you everything you need to sustain yourself once they own you for life. But that's a whole different conversation for a whole different thing. I people in there to get master's degrees and never use them on the outside world. To answer your question, brother, I mean, it's a really beautiful thing because I see us coming into what is it, 2021 now, where it's no longer, or it's starting to go away from just about rejecting what white people have given us and more about embracing what is our own. For example, it used to be, I used to see a lot of, we shouldn't have to celebrate 4th of July because 4th of July is bad. We were enslaved then, and that's true, but we should be celebrating Juneteenth because that is a day for us to celebrate independence in general, regardless of if 4th of July existed or not. So it's great that we're actually starting to see people in my age go back into the past and actually discover some of the nuances that happen within chattel slavery and start to understand some of the things that were just unknown about that time. There's a lot of traction on Twitter and just popular culture about what exactly that time was like, and especially since I'm only 20 right now, and I went to public school, and I don't know if private school would be any different, but even just learning about chattel slavery and enslavement in general, they say, oh, this happened for a few years and y'all all good now, but it's like, no, let's actually explore that. What happened then? How can we tie what happened back then to behaviors displayed now? What exactly does Juneteenth mean to us? So I think that it's very great that people my age are starting to actually be educated about that and to care about it more. And we're having the opportunity to pass that down to the younger generations. So now it can be more normal for them to be able to, look at Juneteenth and say, hey, it's time for us to celebrate what this has been for us.
And Rashawn, one of the things that I want to applaud you on is you were saying they are trying to look and see, chattel slavery, where it came from. I think one of the things and how it, progresses to today, or, is available today, because when folks look at the Willy Lynch letter, have you had a chance to look at the Willy Lynch letter?
I have not read it all the way through.
It's $7 on Amazon. Buy that little bitty pamphlet. All right. And inside of it, you see how the system of sowing division, sowing mistrust, and I had to repent. I mean, personally had to repent to my husband, because what is an independent, strong Black woman was made that way so that she looked down on her Black male, because he was forced to look weak in her eyes because of, and so, yes, I'm a strong Black woman, and independent, and, and I won't say I don't need a man, and there are some that feel that way, but it's because of how our men back then were degraded in our eyes and made to be felt inferior. And that was a strategy that is, spelled out in the Willy Lynch book. All right. And so it's, an understanding how we got systemic racism today based off of what happened over, 400 years ago. It helps us, I think, as a people. And people say, well, you don't need to know that. No, because my direct actions are passed down to me based off of my ancestors having to defend and, perpetrate and survive. But if that had never been like that, we would be kings and queens like we were when we were in Africa, because we weren't made to dumb down. So I think that as young people are searching for why are things the way they are today, they don't and need to shy away from that, because that was the playbook. That was the playbook for the slave owners for how to control the Black folks. Females, males, children, same thing. And you put in your young men to fear and to stay under a mother okay, instead of standing up and being, straight and strong themselves, because our mothers were trying to protect their babies. See, and so that whole thing is propagated, and so young men come up in fear, because of it. So, I mean, as the young people start looking, and again, it's not to drive, hatred, not to drive, but it's to drive understanding, so you can recognize it in yourself and go, okay, that's a generational curse. Need to work on that one.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Indeed. I actually had the opportunity to read Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome by Dr. Joy DeGroy. And this is the same topic that she's talking about the passing down of behaviors that we don't necessarily understand. And it actually spells out some of the behaviors that commonly are practiced within the Black community that we accept as pretty much our normal. And though that wasn't normal to us before encountering, immense amounts of trauma on a daily basis from enduring chattel slavery. So it not only do we have Juneteenth for us to just merely celebrate liberation, but we actually owe it to ourselves to have a moment of inflection to actually, tie the past to the future, tie the past to the present, so that we can appropriately decide how we're going to move forward in the future. So
that is true. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's a whole sermon that y'all just gave. I can say amen a couple of times in there. I just didn't want to interrupt y'all because it was good. But I will say, Rasan, something that you said that resonated, and even Miss Dion said it as well. When we talk about slavery, and then you mentioned Angola, and then we talk about these systems of oppression, and we talk about our history and, our school systems, whether it's public schools or, what's taught, how it's taught, or where it's taught. We're only limited by, our imaginations. And so, our ancestors could have only imagined what we have.
Yeah. They
could have only imagined what we have. And so I say that because, Rasan, as you talk about those things, that's my language. I practice, I'm a criminal defense attorney. So when I hear slavery, and then we think about, the origination of, slave patrols, police officers, and then we think about our prison system, the school to prison pipeline. I mean, they could have only imagined, our ancestors didn't have prisons like we have right now. They had plantations. But again, some of our prison systems are plantations in essence, free labor. And so I kind of want to take the conversation from there and kind of pull in our youngest brother on the call, Brother Elijah Strong, I'll say the past class president over at North Crowley. I know he just walked across that stage, and he's a proud North Crowley graduate, but kind of, give us some perspective. Tell us where North Crowley is on this, or, kind of your community, folks that are your age.
I can't speak to North Crowley, but as I mentioned, now I'm on the historic ground of Miss Opal Lee that she walked, which is Wiley College here in Marshall, Texas. And when I first got here, in fact, we moved in on Juneteenth. And as we were introducing ourselves, I was very enthused to say, I come from the greatest city, Fort Worth, where Miss Opal Lee is at. And to that, kind of just reflecting on Juneteenth and what it means to me, and what happened from the time Miss Opal Lee was at the White House, accompanied by you, Miss Sims. I thought about what's now. What does it mean for our communities, and what does this date now signify? And to that, I think that it goes hand in hand, because a lot of people were commenting on the fact that, okay, you have this now national holiday, but you also have our governor who is putting restrictions on conversations that revolves around race. And we've all heard about this critical race theory and are in an uproar about it. But I think it's a win-win situation, because I heard a teacher say that, why so oftentimes we have people who are the elite, that are in elite positions and that are white and kind of control, and they try to put us down. They don't realize that they're also pulling themselves down as well. And to speak to that is, I think that what's most important is that we gain the victory, regardless of the fact that now in Texas, what bill may be signed about, the restrictions of having race conversations, we have a win. And so when this nationally recognized holiday is on our calendars, we say, okay, well, what is Juneteenth? And it's going to be able to spark conversations. And the conversation is going to be, well, at one point in time, African-American people were enslaved, and we had a delayed notification. And so I think that it gives us an opportunity to still have those educational conversations. My grandmother, she grew up, she raised us to celebrate Juneteenth as well. And so she always said, well, you don't celebrate the 4th of July, but we celebrate Juneteenth. And so that just has been an experience for me, that I know that it's history, and it's history that we've had the opportunity to add on to, and hearing the inspiring story of Miss Opal Lee. And so I think that's where we're at now. But then just touching back on the fact with what does it mean for Fort Worth now, we have to understand that Miss Opal Lee has been recognized nationally as well. And so she's home. And so I think that gives us the opportunity to bridge together more resources and bridge together more opportunities to grow, and kind of see different things and more progress within Fort Worth. And I think that's what it means.
Well, and Elijah, what you said was point on, because the one thing that I'm concerned about is whether the young people can appreciate why Juneteenth is necessary, or why the holiday is being celebrated. A lot of people to me were like, so it's another holiday. The white people are getting off just like we are. So we're rewarding the slave masters a day off, just, so we can have a day off. And to me, that's the wrong way to think about it. And what you said is true, is that in one of the 14 people in the House who did not vote for Juneteenth said that what we're doing is we're making people choose by their ethnicity which Independence Day they want to celebrate. All right. And did any of you see Colbert's monologue on the day that they signed it?
I didn't see it. No.
All right, I'll have to put it inside of the chat. Sure. But he showed the 14 that voted against it, and the one that said that we're racially dividing the country to choose one day. People are going to celebrate a holiday, period. All we're trying to say is, why don't you celebrate freedom between two bookends, the 19th of June through the 4th of July. Those 2 weeks we need to say, this is Miss Opal's thing. I'm gonna get it trademarked or something. Celebrate freedom from the 19th of June to the 4th of July, because Black folks weren't free on July 4th, 1776. Right. And so we were free, we can celebrate, the 19th of June to the 4th of July. And that's true celebrating freedom, because I'm not saying I'm no longer American. Okay, I'm not saying don't celebrate the 4th of July. I want a firecracker like everybody else. All right. But, if you're going to celebrate freedom, then you got to let me celebrate when my people were free. All right. In America. All right. Which was, you do the math, some 1776, 1865, not quite, 100 years, 80 some odd years in between. Okay, I was still a slave for 87 years when you were celebrating, 1776. So let me celebrate. Let me have 2 days to celebrate. I promise you, I won't stop celebrating the 4th of July. All right, I'm gonna still pop some firecrackers. I'm gonna find somewhere legal to pop some firecrackers. All right, for 4th of July. But now more people can celebrate and enjoy the freedom that the enslaved people had on Juneteenth. because at this point, there are a lot of people who helped to free the enslaved. Now you can recognize the Quakers, okay? You don't recognize the Quakers during Black History Month, do you? No, you don't, all right? But they risked family and life, all right, to hide people to get them to freedom. All right. You don't celebrate William Lloyd Garrison. He was a white abolitionist. You know, he and Frederick Douglass started out together. That was a tiff, but still they had the same foundation. Let's help get people to slavery, out of slavery, and get them somewhere. You don't celebrate those people in Black History Month, but they are just as important to the freedom story. Get this, you guys probably didn't know, we had a Southern Underground Railroad that went from Texas to Mexico. This year, we found out about Dr. Maria. We had her for our Juneteenth Empowering You. She talked about the many Black folks that went from Texas to Mexico and got their freedom. Even when their slave masters took them into Mexico to buy or do something, they immediately became, and so if they ran away while they were in Mexico, they immediately were free and had the full protection of the Mexican government and didn't have to go back to Texas. All right. So there is still a village in Mexico that celebrates Juneteenth today. They call it Juneteenth in whatever Spanish language it is, but you have this rich history, so we can find yourself in the Juneteenth story. But that's why we have to pull it out and do it separately, because there is so much history in freedom that, you know, hasn't been taught. And now that we can, it's up to us to not wait on schools, you know, to teach it. You got to teach it to your kids while they're young, while you're at home. Get the books, get Miss Opal's book, Juneteenth for Children. All right. But still, don't wait for the school to do it, because if the government says that you can't do it, you can't keep me from doing it at home. You can't keep me from doing it at church. Okay, you can't keep me from doing it on my sidewalk. So we have to keep the school system from being the only place where education is governed. We have to stop that. School isn't the only place where you learn from.
Absolutely, absolutely. So so with everything that's been said so far, one of the common things we've been talking about, and I think I even heard this phraseology along the way in our conversation, is this concept of freedom. So Rasan, I come to you, brother, and what does that even really look like? What is this freedom that we seek as a people? What does freedom look like? Talk a little bit about that and explain freedom.
I believe freedom for us would ultimately look like the right to expression. And what I mean by that is when we view freedom from the context of chattel slavery, for example. The enslaved only had so much room to express themselves, let's say even in a religious manner where they were overwatched during church, or even when they had to work, they were watched while doing that, where there was little room to actually be humans, to express how they felt. So now, in a more contemporary context, that expression looks, I almost want to use the word freedom, but I can't. I don't want to use the word free, but
Right.
yeah, I mean, it looks like liberty. It looks like expressing how you feel without actually being policed or monitored to do so. What freedom does not look like, as was mentioned earlier, was limiting the conversation around critical race theory. That's the antithesis of freedom, because where one can't accurately address the past, there's extra room for confusion. Freedom looks like the actualization of oneself in a culturally competent manner, where people see themselves represented in a variety of fashions. And I know for myself, being a young Black male, what's primarily put out there in front of me is being a ball player or being a rapper. And that's not very liberating, because what if my
I'm just getting a washing question.
I think Miss Dion forgot to mute herself.
No problem.
But what if my aspirations go beyond being a somebody who's entertaining, and that's what our primary focus should be. It should be focusing on being limitless in whatever we choose to do. Whether we want to fly to the moon, whether we want to be architects, whether we want to be engineers, doctors, whatever that may be. It looks like having a limitless imagination.
No, that's well said, man. Beautifully articulated on that. And so, so my brother, the people's lawyer, I know that you helped moderate this, man, but I actually want you to chime in on this piece of the conversation, because as Rasan is talking about this, and we're talking about this concept of freedom, right? You, much like you alluded to earlier, man, you're working in this criminal justice system, and you've worked on both sides of this criminal justice system. You fought for justice in the sense from a prosecutorial office. You now were a defense attorney with your own practice. You've seen both sides of this, and we're talking about this aspect of freedom. What does that mean? And what does that even mean in the context of what it is that you do, bro, when it comes to actual incarceration and what's happening with the justice system that you fight in every day? What is freedom, and what is that concept, and what does that look like?
So when I hear the word freedom, I mean, a couple of things kind of come to mind. I think of space. I think of safety. I think of protection. And I use some of those words because, again, almost like Rasan did earlier, you want to define freedom and use the word free. But all people, that are, relatively well versed in words know that you're not supposed to define a word with the word. Otherwise, you're not really defining the word. I mean, you're not giving me nothing. But opportunity. Yeah. And what does that mean? An opportunity. For far too long, communities of colors haven't had certain opportunities. Ms. Dion, backs us up when we talk about, when this country was founded, how this country was founded. Land was taken from indigenous people. They were put onto plantations. Over time, those plantations have gotten smaller and smaller. Black folks were, brought here, some free, some not free, a lot not free, for involuntary servitude. They worked at the leisure of somebody. And but even once, quote unquote, let's say 1863 comes about and Abraham Lincoln signs the Emancipation Proclamation, are we free? And I would say the answer is no. I think it's symbolism for me with the 2.5 years. Texas has always just been a sore thumb, in America. And I say a sore thumb just because we do it bigger in Texas, we do it better in Texas, but we also, when we go bad, we go real bad. I mean, when we mess up, we don't mess up a little bit. We mess up a whole lot.
We mess up big because we do it bigger. In Texas.
We do it bigger. Nobody messes up like Texas messes up. And so, yeah, Texas would be the landmark state that would, 2.5 years later, and we forgot to tell some people that they should have, they stay free. Truth of the matter was 1865 comes about, yes, the slaves in Texas are notified in Galveston by the, general that, they're free. But were they free? Did they really have an opportunity to participate in this democracy? They weren't given the right to vote. We got to remember, women couldn't vote. That the suffrage movement, women's suffrage movement doesn't come about until the 1920s. And, this whole civil rights movement is about us trying to get an opportunity at the table in the 60s. And then, the 60s is a rough time. There's a lot of heroes that we still celebrate to this day that came about during the 60s. Not only did they rise during the 60s, they also fell during the 60s. And I say, black, brown, white heroes. They rose and they fell, literally. Like they were not born, but like they were born into their opportunity and maybe assassinated. And again, their legacy has lived on, but as much as we progress, because again, our ancestors would be, they would be surprised looking at us. They would say, you guys made it this far and you guys are doing what? And you know, history is that thing, it's that weird thing that if we don't learn and we don't get it right, we have a unique opportunity to repeat it. Because that's what history is. I mean, the whole reason you take a history class is so you can learn about bad things that happen and good things that happen. So hopefully you never repeat the bad things and you can make this country better, make you better, make your family better. But, you know, I think as we, you know, add some perspective to it and we look at, you know, that Juneteenth holiday, that's real cool. But kind of like Elijah said earlier, that's a good jump off point. You know, that's a good starting point. Miss Dion said it, you know, Juneteenth to July 4th. Okay, let's have 2 weeks every year worth of conversation about, you know, where do we come from and where are we going and where are we at, you know, because all of those things are important. Where we been, where we at, where we going. But the as we talk about the 60s and that voting rights, I think it translates now because, you know, voting rights have been under attack. And obviously there's a cry, you know, to try to pass some type of voting rights act that would kind of that federal law that would overlay any of those state laws that kind of want to take away some of those rights. But, you know, specifically, I think also as it relates to, you know, freedom and some justice, I mean, you know, none of us are free until all of us are free. And, you know, that's not to say that people don't make mistakes and mistakes don't deserve consequences. But the truth of the matter is we have way too many people in America that are sitting behind bars for crimes. And I'll say crimes because that's what they are on the books, whether we like it or not. You know, since the 50s, all we've done is continue every year, put more crimes on the books. We put more crimes on the books. We put more people in prisons. We build more privatized prisons. We are literally investing our money, our tax dollars, and our resources into those prisons, which is, again, it's an incarceration institution. These are not families. These are not communities. You know, humanity wouldn't deem it right to put people behind bars confined 23 hours a day. Keep in mind, we just come out of a pandemic. And as we sit here in Tarrant County, everybody that sat behind bars during the pandemic, they remained incarcerated without able to move outside of their pod 23 hours a day. Imagine that, having a mistake of possession of marijuana or shoplifting from Walmart, and you're sitting in jail because you can't afford bond, and you're sitting in jail with a mask on in a pod that's not 6 feet apart from anybody, and you're sitting in that pod for 23 hours a day. If we don't realize that, and I say realize it because all through the pandemic, people ask me, Albert, what are you doing? You working from home? Albert's going to the jail. Why? Because that's where my people are at. If my people aren't free, we're not free. And so as long as my people are continue to be locked up and incarcerated for things that are minor and they shouldn't be locked up and incarcerated for, none of us are free. And so we have to continue to realize that there needs to be a voice at the table. There's somebody has to fight the fight. And, you know, it's not one person's job, but all of us have to find our role because there's enough work to be done for us to kind of plug and play in different places.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Appreciate that, brother. And so, Elijah, what we're talking about here, man, and now is this concept of freedom and really trying to dissect what does it even mean to be free, right? So I would love to hear your thoughts on that, young brother, about what is freedom to you and what does that even look like for us?
Man, that's can you hear me good? I kind of have to make a transition in between devices.
Oh yeah, we can hear you perfectly, man.
I got an introduction to African American studies during this summer course. My professor, Dr. Muhammad, and we kind of got some definitions down, and I kind of seen something in the chat, and so I kind of want to acknowledge that. What does slavery mean? And so what we heard is that it kind of just gave us different perspective is that slavery is the exploitation of labor. And to go hand in hand with that word was chattel. And chattel was to talk on property, in fact, the movable property. But another thing that we talk about is a slave body and how they breeded us during these slave times, where you will see a big 6'8", 6'9" guy, ambidextrous, and can do the work of 5 men. And so when you talk about being free from that, we have to focus on factualization. And what that means is that without my presence, without your presence, it's still factual. It's still there. And freedom is being simply being free from the systematic barriers that has literally stuck its knee and its foot into our necks for many of years. And that's simply what oppression is. Do we have a long way to go from what freedom looks like? Absolutely. But now having the ability to have an education, we're talking about moving towards freedom. Being able to have these conversations, we're talking about moving toward freedom. To simply be knowledgeable about these things, I think that is a generalized idea of freedom. And to me, honestly, we have to realize that we come from a time where this was just not allowed. I'm looking at some books that I got hanging, and I mean some incredible books. That we weren't even allowed to withhold these books. To be able to do that, I think that we have to be appreciative of that and understand that Black people were the only people, and America is one of the only countries that make up a population of people from all over the world in a voluntary perspective. We're the only ones that came over here forcefully with a desire to not be here. Other people came and migrated with the ideas that, I want to advance and have opportunities. That wasn't the case for us. And so now that we're here and we have the opportunity, moving from the exploitation of our labor to being educated to know what our value and our worth is and know when we should be recognized for it, I think that's freedom.
Indeed. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I tell you, we're going to get ready to conclude our time here shortly. Y'all have been so awesome in all of your remarks and everything, and we're so appreciative of you spending your time here with us this evening, particularly everyone who's tuning in with us. We'll just have a few minutes here remaining. But I guess so.
Hey,
one
Q,
of the
this
things
is Dion.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, Q.
Yes.
So one of the things that we did for Juneteenth,
Yes.
since about 2017, we introduced Madam Tanya Starks, who is the curator of Stepping into Destiny Artist Guild. We introduced a art competition for the kids in the 4th ISD, and we branched it this year to be a national online art competition because of the pandemic and stuff. But the goal was to tell young people about the 12 freedoms gained when Juneteenth came. And so we allowed them to learn about Juneteenth, and the ISD allowed us to give them a kind of a curriculum to follow, to, again, trying to get it into the young people so they can think through them. And when you think about going from being enslaved to being told that you're free, okay, immediately, all right, you gained the ability to birth and keep your children, all right, and then name them, all right, to name yourself. The ability to dress, not having, dressed in rags, right? The ability to know and to preserve your history, to be able to record your history, to marry it and have your family, to grow. I mean, food for yourself, not just for somebody else's benefit, to govern and to legislate, to serve in the military, to own and to do business, to transact. You had money to do your own transactions, to read and write. That one is paramount, because before, if a Black person knew how to read, he was in trouble. All right. And so then to travel, to worship. So again, they had church, but the preacher had to preach because the slave owner was there. So he had to say what, he wouldn't get in trouble for until they could, get together at night and talk about the real deal. Right. So when you look at these 12 freedoms that we got to teach the kids about, they did some beautiful art. and we were able to judge them, and you know, we had winners, but you could teach them, because those freedoms we take for granted today. And that was the neat thing with introducing it to the young people, is those are things that, you know, you don't want to go to school, even virtually, but if somebody told you couldn't, you'd be wanting to. All right. If someone told you couldn't read or write, you're like, well, why not? You know, I don't understand. So don't take our education system for granted, and don't take the fact that your parents are with you. Because, you know, back in the day, you could have been taken away from your parents and grown up without them. And so we were really hoping to help them think through what it was like. And I know that, you know, when the young men, we were blessed this Saturday, the 2 young men who were auctioned off on Snapchat, you guys remember that? They came and walked with Miss Opal and got a chance to talk to her. And she encouraged them. But you know, you don't joke with stuff like that. All right. Let me tell you, you know, playing with somebody and saying, well, I wouldn't buy them because their hair is nappy and stuff. You don't play with that, but that is inside. Okay. That didn't happen they were just joking. Ha ha. No, they heard that was learned. And that's where that systemic undertone is still there, that, you know, just was given birth to and allowed to function in a society that had gone completely off rails because of the administration that we were in. It was allowed. It was, you know, allowed to be uncovered. Have you guys read the book Cast by Isabel Wilkerson?
Isabella Wilkerson, yes, I've had the pleasure, yes.
That book, the way that lady expounded her analogies, the one that from the very beginning, when she talked about the dead anthrax and the deer, that for years was, you know, they thought they had gotten rid of it, but it just went dormant. But enough of the earth and the snow melted and those spores came back out making people sick. That's what happened. That, I'll tell you what, if you haven't read Cast by Isabel Wilkerson, she has some phenomenal pictures that play a visual in your mind to see what state the country was in just a few years ago, now even, you know, but just to think through the freedoms that we have, that we take for granted. If someone told you right now you couldn't do those things that I listed off, hopefully you'd have a fit and go, no, you're taking away my right. I mean, my ancestors worked long and hard to get these rights. You can't take that away. But we now, you know, if you look at it in that sense, where, like Albert said, if we don't know our history, you are doomed to repeat it or allow it to be repeated upon you.
Absolutely. So, no, that's perfect, and that's a great. That is a great book to recommend. And so we got 2 college brothers on the line, so y'all know y'all got to cop that and put that into your lexicon, into your repertoire. All right, but so no, I love those words and those sentiments you just said. As we get ready to wrap here, I want to go around, and I'm going to start with you here, Elijah. And you know, I would like for you to address this 2 ways. I would like for you to, one, talk to our people. Talk to our brothers and sisters, Black people. What is it that we need to know and focus on for our own betterment, upliftment, and freedom? And then once you do that, I also want you to be able to talk to our non-Black brothers and sisters about what they need to know about what it is to align with us and what that freedom is.
That's good. That's good. Firstly, I think that, again, after analyzing so many comments, so many remarks on making Juneteenth a national holiday, we had so many people who said, well, what about reparations? And I believe I've seen a lot of people quoting Malcolm X. If you give, and I'm just paraphrasing, if you give them a little bit, that'll satisfy them to kind of get away from what we really need to move toward. And I think that what it takes is to move toward what we really desire, which is reparations, equity in education, and every aspect of living the workforce and all of those things is that we have to have advocacy. We have to have strong advocacy. And I think that hearing those comments, it was a mockery of the work of people like Miss Opal Lee. A lot of people don't know that years and years were invested into that. But until we have the willingness to say, you know what, come hell or high water, I'm going to invest this. I'm willing to dedicate my life so that my people can have this. And so I think that when we move toward a movement as a unified people to say, okay, this is something that we want, and these are the steps that we have to take to get to those things. I think that that's what we have to do. To those that are not us, I think it again goes to having joint forces and the things that we desire. We have to understand that if it were not for white people, there were abolitionists and people that felt that slavery was not right, then we wouldn't be here today either, and have these advantages. And so I think so often we push the assumption that all white people are racist or come from an idea that Black people do not matter. And with those biases, we cannot move forward. And so in most cases, we have to eliminate those biases to move forward. And by that, and sometimes being honest, when I see somebody who is non-Black, I'm reading them. I'm like, okay, is they racist? What way do they vote? And we have to understand that those things are due to past trauma that still lingers and that is ingrained within who we are. But in order to move forward, we have to understand that it's all about unifying all people. And some people don't know the nature that earlier today, and I'll be finished, we were talking about culturally inspired behaviors. So sometimes I may say something to you, Mr. Roberts, that may not be who I am, but it may be culturally inspired. And so if I know that you're acting out of a place that is culturally inspired, it's my responsibility to educate you. And if I'm moving in the direction of educating you, then I'm winning you onto my side so that we can move forward. And so understandably, we all come from a different demographic. And sometimes it's not how we are, it's just what culture has inspired us to be. And sometimes people aren't racist. Some people don't have their true identity, but only have been around that, but truly do care about us and the movement of our people. And we have to take that in consideration to be able to move forward.
Love it, man. Absolutely love it. Appreciate that, Elijah. And so the same to you there, Brother Hassan, be able to share your sentiments with our people, with Black folks, about what it is we need to know. What's that message we need to have as far as for our own liberation and freedom, and how we need to maneuver. And then also, what is the message that we have for those non-Black brothers and sisters who may be watching as well?
Right, thank you. For my Black people, my beautiful Black people who are watching, I have one phrase for you: stay focused. I say that because as I've become increasingly aware, it's become more and more apparent that there is a significant investment in the disorienting of Black people and the miseducating of Black people and the distraction of Black people. And with that comes, there are many times where sometimes you'll wonder if somebody has any direction. And a lot of times you may think that because, or you may ask yourself that because a group of people may seem to be without purpose. So have purpose, understand what your mission is, and avoid those things that are not a part of your mission. Because there are many powers that be to try to make sure that Black people are not on the up and up and keeping forward on the positive track, on the track that is educating ourselves, understanding who we are as people, as a people. And to anybody else who may be watching, I would like to say that we all suffer from miseducation about Black people. We all suffer from it. And I say that because Black people's achievements in this world, but since we're in America, this country, are significant to everyday life, and are significant to modernity as we know it. So you are closer to Black people than you think, whether or not you know any. So I think we could all humble ourselves and realize that it doesn't help anybody for us to not know anything about the history of this country.
Beautifully put, brother. Beautifully put. And so, Dion, you still rocking with us there? We definitely want to give you an opportunity to chime in at the end here. She may have had to step away there for a moment. I know she was in the middle of transit. But yeah, if you pop back on, feel free to do so. But of course, Brother Albert.
I'm sorry, Q, I'm still here.
You here. There we go. All right, yeah, we definitely want to give you an opportunity to offer some final sentiments and takeaways that we need to know from this evening.
The thing that I want, and I think Elijah and both of Sean said it very eloquently, is that there's nothing that we can do apart. And that's Miss Opal's whole thing, right? Is that we've got to learn to work together. You can't dismiss people because of cultural indoctrination. And so her thing is help change their minds. All right. Let them know. Okay. Let them know when they are offending you, because sometimes they don't know. This is just how they are. But you take the opportunity to say, that is offensive. What I do? Okay. They may not know that what they're saying or how they're saying, or, you know, thinking that they can get away with saying the N-word. No, you can't. Okay. No, you can't do that. All right. Or don't try and pretend that, you know, that shouldn't offend me. Okay. Let me help you understand the culture. All right. And so, but it's all about educating. All right. And not just sweeping stuff under the rug anymore. All right. But it ain't about, you know, calling folks out, in front of folks. Pull somebody to the side. Don't try and embarrass them. All right. Because they want to be right. There are allies who want to be, you know, on the right side of history. But because of cultural indoctrination, all right, no matter how much they try not to be offensive, they can be. All right. But it's about educating and helping win them over to the right side so that they understand who we are as a people and how they can help. A lot of people are awake now. If you look at the 60s and compared to the protests in the 60s and the protests now, there is such a diverse audience now fighting for not just, you know, Black Lives Matter, okay, but right matters, just right. It's just the right thing to do, okay? And the young people are going, we're not going to sit by idly, all right, and live in our cushioned houses while folks are being treated wrong, being killed. We're not. So whereas before the group in the 60s, they sympathized, but they had too much to lose. My standing in the community, my bridge club, my friends, they wouldn't understand. So they sympathized, but they could not put their life on the line. Today's youth, white, brown, yellow, doesn't matter. They're like, we're standing because it's the right thing to do. You can't treat another human being that way. And that's the thing that we've got to understand. As she says, we're all brothers under the skin. We all bleed red blood. And God created man. He created woman. He didn't create a skin tone. We're his creations. And that is the thing that, the ideal state that we should be in. And that's what I believe Juneteenth can give us. And again, it's the launching pad. Juneteenth gives us a place of starting to go forward, recognizing where we've been so we don't do it again, but going forward, let's rectify it now. I'm not blaming you. It wasn't you. Yeah, it was your ancestors, but don't let their sin be in you. Okay? Do something to change it. And that's where I am.
Well, Ms. Dion Sims, you're an absolute gem. We cannot thank you enough for your time, your wisdom, and the work that you're doing. Is so powerful and it's so impactful. And you just deserve so much gratitude from so many of us, because you are really making this city and this world a better place. So thank you for Community Frontline. We really do appreciate it. My brother Albert Roberts.
Thank you.
Sprinkle some last minute wisdom on him, man. What's our takeaways from the conversation?
Sure. Well, I think, one of the things is we know the work is not done. The work is being done. So anybody that's confused and thinks, okay, it's over, we made it to the finish line, or the finish line is even in sight, just doesn't understand the marathon that we're running. We're literally running legs of a marathon. So it's important that we run our leg really strong. We started really fast. We run the middle leg, part of it strong, and we close it out strong. And we close it out, we got to realize that baton has to be passed. So sometimes we'll find ourselves either on the receiving end of a baton or on the giving end of a baton. But either way, we got to realize when you run that race, you're not just running the race for you. You run that race with something on your back. You run that race with your ancestors on your back. And you run that race when you get tired and you get weary, or you feel like I can't take another step, or this is just too much. You got to realize the people that ran the leg before you ran further, ran longer, ran harder. And so no excuses. We stand on the shoulders of giants. The people that we celebrate and memorialize and talk about and are oftentimes quoted and sometimes even misquoted, or selectively quoted. They want to talk, pull the stuff. Some people want to pull the stuff out that they like, but leave all the stuff that actually cuts both ways. We have to remember that leg of the race that we run is as important, because anybody who's familiar with track knows you can't have a weak person on your team if you plan on winning a relays. Everybody needs to be strong. You need to come out the gate strong. You need to have a strong second, third, and that ankle. This thing, it's not going to be easy. If it was, everybody be doing it. And so the truth of the matter is, I believe we have to take the onus on ourselves and say, what can we do? And for those of us that, don't look like us on this call, or maybe don't think like us on this call, that's okay. That's what education's about. There's an opportunity, freedom. There is an opportunity out here for them to get up to speed. And we can get people up to speed, not when they want to get up to speed, but through dialogue, through tough conversations, and literally by being direct. When people say, I don't understand, tell them where to plug in. That doesn't mean you have to give them a book to read. Tell them what meeting to show up at. Tell them when the next whatever is going on. Invite them into those spaces. Because when they get in those spaces, some of those questions will answer themselves. Some of those things that you think are mysteries are not really mysteries. You just never been there. And the same goes for us. We have to put ourselves in some of those spaces so people are willing to say, you know what, maybe I do need to listen to Rasan. Maybe I do need to listen to Miss Dion or Elijah or Q. Because again, until you have to be in the room with Q, you ain't never been in the room with Q. But once you get in the room with Q, you won't leave the room the same. And so I think that's the challenge. We challenge each other. And so that's kind of my takeaway.
I absolutely love it, man. That was a beautiful takeaway. So as we get ready to go ahead and wrap up here, I'll just simply say this. This whole conversation around Juneteenth, which I am elated that the world is awakening to it and to what that celebration of freedom really looks like. As we talk about freedom, y'all elocuted so wonderfully what freedom really is in many ways. But what it really is what's written down already. If we actually bring that to fruition and live by it, then we actually will be able to see freedom. Because what if there really was a culture in Western civilization, a culture in America, a culture in Texas, where we really did believe and live by the fact that we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. That would be real freedom if we actually treated everyone as if they were created equally to us. What if everyone really did have the opportunity to freely practice their religion, to really have freedom of speech, right? Without all the restrictions and without the ridicule and the judgment that comes along with those things along the way. What if everything that I was able to obtain in my life was simply based upon my merit, my work ethic, how much I was willing to hustle and go get it, and not defined by all the barriers in which I have to, in the loopholes I got to jump through in order to be able to scratch out an existence here, right? If we really get to a point in time to where a person really can truly be judged on the content of their character and not the color of their skin, that is what freedom really would be, right? And so I think that's exactly what we're attempting to do here. I think that's what Rasan is doing on his campus. I think that's what he's doing through the body of our fraternity. I think that's what he's doing as he's educating himself, as he's going to graduate eventually into this workforce and into the society as and all the beautiful things he's going to do. I think that's exactly what you're doing in the justice system right now, my brother Albert, as you are navigating what that looks like for true justice and freedom for so many of others. I think that's what Let's Hope Believers marching for, what Dion is doing with their nonprofit, and what Community Frontline is attempting to do is to say that we want to end oppression for everyone, and anyone who is oppressed needs to have the hands of all trying to make sure we're ending that oppression. And if anyone's still facing any type of oppression, then none of us are free. So that's our job, is to get on the ball, is to get skin in the game, like my brother Albert always alludes to, and making sure that we're doing our part to where the generation that comes after us are not continuously fighting the same battles that we're having to fight now. Those same ones that got passed down to us. Rasan Hatcher, you're an ice cold, beautiful Black man, and I'm so happy you was here with us tonight, man. Thank you for your time, your energy, and your intellect.
Thank you.
Thank you to my brother Franklin Moss for being behind the scene, making sure that we got rolling this evening. Thank you for all your work. I think that's his way of saying hi. And of course, thanks to my partner in crime. Styles to my Jada, my co-pilot Albert Roberts. Appreciate you for always being on the journey. And we're gonna make sure we get out of here. Y'all keep up with us, keep checking our IG, keep checking our Facebook and our Twitter for what's going on with Community Frontline, because we definitely want to keep people engaged, involved, and we want to make sure we're doing our part before work to be a better city. Until next time, much love, and we'll see you soon on the front lines. All right.
All day.
All right, guys.